Hey guys, Pokepixel here. I've used my 2012 MacBook Pro for coming up to 2 years now, and I've really enjoyed having this laptop. However, there have been some things bugging me about it which have caused me to look for alternatives. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw this laptop listed on Amazon. It has everything that I want, for a price I can afford. Is this price too good to be true, or is the Chuwi Corebook X a steal for £490? Let's find out. Let's start off with the build quality of this laptop, which is just great. The laptop is all metal, which you can tell by how cold it gets when not in use. The laptop is insanely thin. I've not had the pleasure of using such a thin laptop before. It is light too, which overall makes it really nice to hold and move around. There are large feet on the bottom of the laptop for it to take in air and then exhaust it from the right side of the hinge. The design is quite clean with just a simple Chuwi logo on the top left corner of the lid. On the inside, the same clean and simple design trend continues with a near bezel-less screen, large keys, and a large trackpad. And an Intel sticker too. It doesn't come with any of the crap that some laptops of this price range have, like a large palm rest sticker advertising you the features of the laptop that you've already bought, or stickers from different companies. The only thing I don't like about this laptop is the weird placement of the indicator lights and the red power symbol on the red power button. Funnily enough, Chuwi's own renders actually make this laptop look worse than it is. On the renders, the function keys are blue and the bezel around the power key is red instead of the symbol. The laptop does look a bit similar to the MacBook Air, but I think it is distinct enough for it not to be an outright Apple clone. With the I/O, on the left side you have a mini barrel plug for power, USB-C, and on the right side we have a single USB-A port, a headphone jack and a micro SD card slot. You can use the micro SD card slot to expand storage on this laptop. If you prefer faster storage however, on the bottom of the laptop is a hatch that allows you to place in a second M.2 SSD. I've managed to instantly get used to the keyboard on this laptop. Its travel, despite the short keys, is perfectly fine and the keys are mostly where you'd expect them to be, with the exception of the American Enter key and the page up key being where I would expect the Enter key to be. What I haven't gotten used to is the trackpad however. It is plastic as opposed to glass, which makes it not very nice to glide around with, and there is more resistance too. Despite this supporting Windows precision drivers, the trackpad is not entirely accurate, sometimes accidentally tapping when dragging, or if I'm using my thumb to press in the left click, it thinks that my thumb is the index finger. In all fairness, I have the same problem on my Mac too. The trackpad's click has the subtlety of a bulldozer. It is a very loud and hollow sound. There is a distinct click on both the left and right side of the trackpad, so if you're dragging around you'll end up clicking twice. I end up just tapping with the trackpad instead of clicking the button because of it. Also, the trackpad disables itself when you're using the keyboard, which is not only irritating in normal use, but makes gaming basically impossible. The trackpad is at least very big, although it is more or less standard for Windows laptops nowadays. I didn't even notice this, but I'm editing a missing pixel video right now, and this trackpad just stops responding when you get to this point. Look. What's the point of such a big trackpad if it has a massive dead zone? Here, look. Because of the precision drivers though, we do have gesture support. One that is nearly identical to macOS, which is great. Means Windows does what I want it to do, like switching desktops by swiping with 4 fingers, or showing all apps open by swiping 4 fingers up. Gestures are all fully customizable. The palm rest stays nice and cool when using this laptop, a nice change from a MacBook. The screen of this laptop is the main selling point, being a 14-inch panel with the resolution of 2160 by 1440. The screen just looks fantastic, it is so sharp. Have a look at the difference between my MacBook's 800p screen and this screen. It is absolutely a night and day difference and it is so nice to look at. What's also nice about the display are the colours, which are very vibrant. The contrast is really good too, and the screen is IPS, which means that the colours don't distort at extreme angles. I unfortunately do not have access to a colour calibrator at the moment, so I can't tell you guys what the sRGB range is, but Chuwi states the screen supports 70% of the NTSC colour gamut, which means that it should be able to do about 90% of sRGB if not more. I will update you guys in the comments below once I get access to a calibrator though and tell you what the percentage is, likewise with the luminance of the screen. The screen gets decently bright, although with the bleak British winter weather, it is going to take a few months to find out how it handles in the sun. The laptop does not have an ambient light sensor, however its brightness changes depending on the context of what you're looking at. If you have apps in dark mode, the screen is darker than if they are in light mode. I spoke on my Mi Mix 2 review about how I don't like this, and I don't like it here either. The screen is 14 inches, but because of the tiny bezels, the laptop is in a 13-inch body and can fit into a 13-inch bag. There is no way to open the laptop without smudging the screen though, and speaking of opening the laptop, you can't do it with one finger, not on a desk anyway. The screen is 3x2, which makes it perfect for looking at images shot over DSLR, a mirrorless camera, or a 35mm camera, since those images are in a 3x2 aspect ratio. It also makes it good for watching 4x3 content with minimal bezels. The screen can also lay nearly flat too. I have no idea what the point is, but hey, I can't complain, it's cool that it does it. The screen doesn't wobble when typing, thankfully. The screen was the main reason for me to upgrade from my old MacBook. Having a low resolution meant missing small details within my photographs when editing at a fit to screen percentage, particularly annoying when removing dust from film scans. Here, I can see most of the detail without having to zoom in, and only need to zoom in for Lightroom to load in a full resolution version of my image. My old MacBook, despite having a color profile, was not entirely accurate either compared to my iPhone screen. The laptop seems to fare much better in terms of accuracy between it and my iPhone, which is just great. It is nice to be able to finally see my images in good quality like they should have been seen, instead of on a small iPhone screen or an inaccurate 4K TV downstairs. The tiniest of tiny problems is that the backlight isn't entirely uniform, with the bottom right corner being a bit brighter than the rest, though this is only noticeable on the boot screen. Performance-wise, we have an Intel Core i5-7267U with an Intel Iris 650 GPU. The main problem I had on my MacBook was that Microsoft Teams would slow down the laptop, Premiere Pro would take a second or two to play back footage, and the footage would run at a very slow frame rate, even at a quarter resolution of 1080p. Lightroom would take a few seconds to enlarge images, Discord will make the laptop run really hot if someone was to screen share and use the webcam, and because certain apps wouldn't fit onto the tiny 800p resolution. Thankfully, all of these problems are gone here. Lightroom zoom is nearly instant, Premiere Pro doesn't take seconds to start playback, and the playback isn't choppy either, tested at half resolution. Teams still makes the laptop run hot, but it doesn't slow down. Sure, maybe the CPU isn't as fast as the Ryzen one at stuff like rendering video, exporting photos, but I'm impressed by just how much performance there is in a laptop this cheap, seriously. It's a very speedy laptop and I'm not missing any power for what my use case is. What has impressed me even more is the gaming performance. I thought the HG4000 was good for a non-gaming laptop, but the Iris 650 blows it out of the water in comparison. I don't play the latest and greatest games on PC, I only play indie titles and all the games that aren't available on consoles, or at least the latest ones. But the games I tested ran great. Euro Truck Simulator 2 runs at 4.4p at half resolution, so it runs at 720p essentially. It runs on medium settings and never dips below 30fps. I could probably tweak the settings more to run even better or at a higher quality, but I'm happy with the performance, seeing as my MacBook ran the game at a quarter of 800p, that's 200p, at lowest graphics settings. Yeah, I lived with playing at 200p, it was rough. Crash Time 3 from 2009 runs at native resolution at medium settings in 60fps, though Crash Time 5 from 2012/2013 runs at 1200p at medium to low settings in 30fps. The current game is entirely bottlenecked by the CPU, so changing resolution or graphics settings does not do much. That's basically it in terms of modern games tested. It runs the games I want it to at HD resolutions, and that's more than enough for me. It's not a gaming laptop, it's a cheap ultrabook. And maybe you can get a Ryzen based laptop for a similar price, but you'd certainly be sacrificing the screen quality. Just be aware that sometimes there is a weird sound that the laptop makes when playing games. It might be something to do with the fan, but I reckon it is some sort of a coil whine when a CPU and GPU are being pushed at the same time. The laptop has 16GB of solid DDR4 RAM, as well as a 256GB Kingston SSD. With the second M.2 slot and the microSD card slot, there are 3 separate ways you can upgrade the laptop, in terms of storage that is. 16GB of RAM should be enough for many years to come as well. Apple won't even sell you an Apple Silicon laptop with more than 16GB of RAM. The laptop has an Intel Wi-Fi and Bluetooth card, and the trackpad is a Cine 3602, whatever that is. Maybe it's a Synaptics trackpad? I don't know. But I do know that the non-Windows compatibility is hit and miss for these things. If you know, you know. There is a tiny light next to the USB-C port that tells you the charge status of its laptop. Red for charging, blue for charged. Speaking of charging, the laptop brick is tiny, which is fantastic to see for a Windows laptop. I hate ugly charging bricks on laptops. It's an irrational hatred, I know, but it just makes the laptop feel cheap. So I'm glad Chuwi made one that looks nice. The headphone out sounds really good for Realtek. I expected flat and lifeless sound, but there's a punch, which I do quite like. The speaker quality is so-so. The speakers are located on the bottom, which means that they get blocked by your lap or your mattress if you place it on your bed. You want to lift the laptop up and have the speakers face towards you, which, isn't ideal. They sound fine though. If you lift this laptop up while listening to music, you get a decent amount of treble and there is a little bit of bass too. The sound is quite wide too. You can disable sound enhancements in Windows, which gets rid of the bass and the sound widening, but it can sound better in some situations, particularly with voice, as there can be a bit of distortion with voice with this enhancement setting. The microphone sounds perfectly acceptable. By default, noise reduction and echo reduction is applied, but this can be disabled. The camera quality is so-so, really. I would say it doesn't matter, but we're in 2021 and zoom's kind of important, so it does kind of matter. My favourite part is just the frame rate, which makes everything look really blurry. Also, another thing, there is no indicator light to tell you that the webcam is being used, which sucks quite a lot. The last thing to bring up with this laptop are the thermals. My MacBook, due to its old thermal paste, ran far too hot. Watching YouTube in 1080p 60fps, and especially on 2x speed, would bring the laptop to a toasty 90+ degrees. Likewise with Teams and Discord, Lightroom would run between 70 to 90 degrees as well. The Corebook X runs at about 45 to 50 degrees on idle, and not much warmer whilst watching YouTube on 1080p 60fps 2x speed. The only time I've managed to cripple the CPU was with 1440p 60fps HDR footage, where the laptop got to around 70 to 80 degrees, which is around the same temperature as playing games. So yeah, it's really nice to have a laptop that is faster, more efficient, and can actually handle YouTube playback like a modern laptop should. What I don't like about the thermals though is the ridiculous fan curve. It's not even a curve. When above 45 degrees, the laptop turns on to speed 1, and when above either 55 or 60 degrees, the fan turns on to speed 2. Because it is not a linear curve, the laptop's fan constantly turns off and on depending on the load. Even as I'm writing the script, the fan keeps turning off and on. Looking at my images, the fan spins up to render an image and then turns off again. It is annoying. I went into BIOS, and despite there being a setting to change this, changing the settings does nothing. The default values don't even correspond to what I see on core temp. Overall, what do I think of the Chuwi Corebook X? Well, it is a solid upgrade for me and does everything that I wanted to and more. I initially bought this laptop with the idea that it would be a temporary purchase for a year or two until I can afford an Apple Silicon MacBook. But actually, for now anyway, I don't think I'll be getting rid of this laptop anytime soon. Being back on Windows lets me play games without having to reboot. There is enough performance for me to be able to do my job without being slowed down, and the screen is pretty fantastic. I came in with very low expectations since all the other cheap Windows laptops I've owned in the past. Well, if you ever used a cheap Windows laptop, you'll know what the experience is like. Garbage displays, plastic build, big charge breaks, barely enough performance, and bad trackpads. This laptop only has one of these problems. And with those laptops, there is always some sort of a compromise too. You can get a laptop with a 250GB SSD and a decent Core i3 or Ryzen, but only 8GB of RAM and a 1080p screen that is very likely nowhere near the quality of this panel. And those sorts of laptops cost £450 to £500. On Chuwi's website, this laptop is much cheaper, costing me only £380. Although keep in mind that the customs charges are not included in this price, although Chuwi currently is waiving these fees for UK customers, for the time anyway. So yeah, this laptop has blown away my expectations and I'm super happy with this purchase. I can fully recommend this laptop to basically anyone who wants an all-around laptop that you can do light to moderate work and gaming on. Thank you for watching this video and I hope to see you in the next one.